A Siberian miner loads his last shipment, unaware his job is already gone. He is part of an industry now losing nearly 1 billion rubles every single day. Just 3 years ago, Russian coal raked in over $10 billion in profit. Now, 74% of companies are bleeding cash. Entire towns face shutdown and wage arrears are spreading. Why did Russia's energy lifeline collapse so fast? And could this be just the beginning? In KUZBASS, the collapse of a single mine sends shockwaves far beyond its gates. At Spiridonovskaya, 900 workers woke to find not just their jobs, but months of wages vanished. The company owed them 90 million rubles. That money was supposed to pay for groceries, heating, school books, and medicine. For many, the only certainty is a letter promising payment someday, as bills pile up and hope slips away. The pain does not end at the mine. Across the Kemerovo region, the coal crash has torn a hole in public finances. By the end of 2024, the regional deficit soared to 70.6 billion rubles. Officials met in closed-door sessions, forced to slash the budget by a fifth. Education funding fell 12%, leaving schools to cut staff and cancel programs. Healthcare lost a fifth of its support, with clinics closing early and medicine in short supply. Housing programs, once a lifeline for young families, lost 3/4 of their funding in a single year. For towns like Kiselyovsk and Prokopievsk, coal is not just a job, it is the air people breathe. 150,000 workers across the region depend directly on the mines, and millions more rely on the web of shops, services, and transport that coal supports. When a mine closes, the entire town feels it. Shops empty, bus routes disappear, and families start to leave. The pressure is building. Wage arrears now total hundreds of millions of rubles across KUZBASS, with 8 coal enterprises suspending operations and hundreds of miners unpaid for months. The memory of past unrest lingers. Coal miner strikes in 1989 and in 1998 shook the country and helped bring down governments. Now, the same warning signs are flashing. Desperate workers, unpaid wages, and regional leaders with no answers. In the words of a Kemerovo finance chief, when coal suffers, everyone suffers. The numbers are cold, but the reality is personal, one lost paycheck at a time. In 2022, Russia's coal industry stood at its highest point in modern history. Global turmoil sent coal prices soaring from $90 a ton to $450 a ton, a fourfold leap almost overnight. That year, profits reached 821 billion rubles, more than $10 billion. Moscow's leaders, flush with cash, dismissed Western sanctions as empty threats. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov went on record saying Russia had found new buyers in Asia and that the world still needed Russian energy. But the windfall was built on sand. As prices stabilized, the profits evaporated just as quickly. By 2023, industry profits fell to 375 billion rubles, less than half the previous year. The following year brought disaster. Losses totaled 112 billion rubles, even as production held steady at 440 million tons. Companies that had just celebrated record earnings now faced a stark reality. Over half were operating at a loss. The collapse did not slow. In the first 8 months of 2025, losses reached $4 billion, triple the same period in 2024. By the end of the year, the industry was on track to lose more than $5 billion, pushing total losses since 2022 toward $30 billion. Coal prices at Far Eastern ports crashed to $69 a ton, the lowest since 2020, far below break-even for most Russian producers. 74% of coal companies reported operating at a loss. Nearly a quarter had stopped production altogether. The numbers reveal a trillion-ruble swing from the heights of 2022 to the abyss of 2025. What was once a pillar of Russia's economy has become a drain on the national balance sheet. For every ton shipped, companies bleed cash. Still, the mines keep running, trapped by debt and political pressure. The industry as a whole is caught in free fall, its brief moment of triumph replaced by a relentless tide of red ink. Railways once powered Russia's coal boom, carrying millions of tons from the pits of KUZBASS to distant Asian ports. But since 2020, the cost of moving coal by train has nearly doubled. In December 2025, Russian railways raised tariffs another 10%, even as coal prices hit their lowest point in years. For coal companies, every shipment to China now means a loss. On the Far East route, each ton exported costs 259 rubles more than it earns. The industry's debt has ballooned to nearly $19 billion, leaving companies trapped between rising bills and shrinking revenue. An analyst at the International Energy Agency points to a simple equation. When transport eats up most of the sale price, profit vanishes. In January 2026, Russian coal sold for just over $109 a ton, 6% lower than the year before, while costs kept climbing. The old logic, ship more, survive, no longer works when every trainload bleeds cash. China, once the industry lifeline, is quietly closing its doors. A trade expert in Beijing notes that Chinese banks now hesitate to handle Russian transactions, wary of secondary sanctions. China's own mines are producing more than ever, with stockpiles up 42%. Imports of Russian coal dropped by 1/4 in 2025, and the trend is accelerating. In New Delhi, an Indian policy analyst describes a similar retreat. After new tariffs and political pressure, Indian utilities are signing contracts with Australia and Indonesia instead. These suppliers offer stable prices, shorter routes, and none of the diplomatic headaches. With both China and India walking away, Russia finds itself stranded, priced out, indebted, and running out of buyers. Michel's collapse stands as a warning for the entire sector. In the third quarter of 2025, Russia's largest coal producer cut output by more than half, falling to just 1.28 million tons, levels not seen in over a decade. The company's first half net loss soared to 40.5 billion rubles, nearly 2.5 times higher than the previous year. CEO Oleg Korchov put it bluntly, selling coal at today's exchange rates simply loses money. Yet shutting down is not an option. Michel, like its rivals, is trapped by billions in debt. Stopping shipments would trigger defaults and mass layoffs, while continuing to operate drains cash with every ton shipped. Desperation forced the Kremlin to intervene. In May 2025, President Putin approved a rescue package that included discounted rail tariffs, tax deferrals, federal subsidies, and promises of guaranteed export deals. The Ministry of Energy called for 178 billion rubles in aid, but by mid-year losses had already surged past 300 billion rubles. Even Deputy Energy Minister Dmitry Islamov admitted the gap. Government support was less than half of what was needed just to keep the lights on. Meanwhile, Russia's emergency fund was being depleted at record speed, and the national budget deficit hit $45.8 billion in the first half of 2025. The consequences reach far beyond the mines. Coal accounts for over a quarter of all Russian rail cargo. If coal shipments collapse, so does the rail network that employs nearly 700,000 people. The dominoes are lined up. As Michel falters, the risk spreads to railways, local economies, and the federal budget. Analysts warn that without a dramatic turnaround in global prices, a wave of defaults and closures could hit within a year. The system is no longer just strained, it is unraveling. Coal once fueled Russia's sense of economic invincibility. Now, as $30 billion in losses and vanishing markets break that illusion, the world watches a resource giant stumble. The real cost is not just measured in rubles, it is measured in futures, left hanging by a system running out of lifelines.